how did you get put in place? Like, since yesterday, being from New York, I was talking to my friends, everybody automatically defaults to the mayor, Rudy Giuliani. So, but how did you get involved with Donald in this lawsuit?
I want you to understand this in the right context, but there's a love, okay? If you went out and met up with somebody who you were very close to in high school, and whatever it was that you were meeting for, whether it was to play around a golf or whether it was to just talk about doing some kind of a business together, whatever it is, there would be a certain feeling between you that would be a healthy, I call it love, but you know what I'm talking about. You've known somebody for a long time. Yeah, and you like them for all those years ago. They never let you down. They never did anything, to
Adoration.
even hurt your feelings. Well, it's just there's a difference. You know what they say? I say that it takes a long time to make an old friend.
Yeah.
And you don't know anybody till you live with them. And here we live together, so we really knew who we were, and we both figured that we seem to be the same people that we were back then. So there's a certain good feeling between us, but that never caused him to hire me. And, I always wondered why. We talk, he'd say, "Look, Peter, it looks like you're doing well. And you and I are doing all right now, but the country doesn't look like it's doing so well." I mean, we've had those kinds of conversations, but still he never hired me to be his lawyer. And then, just as a matter of coincidence, Alina Haber had dinner in a dinner party where she sat next to my daughter, who was a judge. And the two of them just got along so well that Alina asked her, said, "Would you consider, we need local counsel here in Florida, would you consider being local counsel?" My daughter said, "Well, it really wouldn't work so well. I'd be recused from every judge because we're friends." And so I don't really practice law. I do mediation, but my father might be of interest to you. And then that interested Alina. And after that, she found out that I knew Donald from before and that I wrote the book and so on. And so that really kind of made me look like a good prospect. And we hit it off. And then I spent some more time with Donald and Alina. It was supposed to be for 20 minutes. We talked for an hour and a half about all kinds of wonderful things. Never about the past, but just what's going on in the country, what's going on in the world, what needs to be done. And that's when I got hired, and that was the end of December. So I've been working on this complaint that got filed yesterday ever since, which is amazing when you think about it, because people in my office have been working on this thing, but not a word got breathed. Nobody knew it was coming.
Yeah, I know. It was a big surprise.
Yeah, for that period of time to have a number of people know it, but I've got wonderful people in my office, and they know how to keep things to themselves. So we were able to.
So looking at the lawsuit, it's like, here it is on my phone. You look. I mean, that's all the defendants there. And it's like Hillary, the DNC, Sussman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. It's just a whole list of names. That's a and like, how do all these players, they're from all over the place. So how do they all interconnect? It's amazing when the names are on this list.
Right. There's 28 defendants.
Wow.
And yes. And obviously some of them are well known, like Hillary Clinton, others not quite as well known, like Danchenko.
Yeah,
but
Danchenko, yep.
But basically, if you think of it, all stems from Hillary Clinton. It all goes right up to Hillary Clinton. She is the thrust behind it. And when you think about what happened, I mean, it's just so unthinkable. It's hard to even understand. I mean, why in the world would somebody come up with this great idea? I got a great idea. let's make believe that Donald Trump has a private relationship with Putin. Let's say that there's collusion between the Russian government and Donald Trump. Let's manufacture proof of this. Let's make sure that proof gets published. Let's get that proof to the authorities so they can begin an investigation. And then when the authorities don't really take it over and believe it, then they say, well, let's then get into their computers and make believe they're sending emails back and forth between one of the Russian banks, the Alpha Bank, and Donald Trump's organization, so that we can then take that to the authorities, the FBI, and show them that this is happening. Then let's propagate it. Let's begin an investigation. Let's make sure that people start wiretapping and watching them as they would under a FISA warrant. So we have to have it as a foreign government. It can't be some craziness with Epstein or something else that could be domestic. It's got to be with a foreign government so that the FISA warrants can come into play. I mean, who would even come up with this scheme? Why would anybody do this?
This would be a
This is what
far-fetched
they
story
did.
for the TV show like 24, you know?
Yeah, it's less believable. I mean,
Yeah.
you almost have to have a suspension of disbelief in order to be able to grasp what this case is about. You know, when I was practicing law in Toronto, I had a client come to me and he told me that he was being questioned by 2 police officers, and another guy came into the room, another police officer in a bunny costume, a big guy in a big bunny costume with a big fish in his hand. And he said he beat the living crap out of me with that fish, that dead fish. And I thought the guy was crazy. I was wondering, you know, what's going on. He seemed to be all right, but he insisted on this as being true. But I knew I wouldn't be able to convince a judge or anybody that this had happened, because it doesn't, nobody does things like this. Nobody does things off the wall. And then sure enough, I'm in court, I'm talking to one of my friends, another defense attorney from another firm. And he starts telling me about a client of his who said that he had this guy dressed up in a bunny costume that beat the hell out of him with a dead fish. So they were, you know, it turned out that because lawyers talk to each other, we found out that they were doing that. So, you know, who would ever think that somebody would do something crazy like this? But this is what Hillary Clinton did. She was so far above the law in terms of what she didn't have to even concern herself with the illegalities and the criminality of what she was doing. It's just beyond normal belief. So but it happened, and we can prove it.
So without going across any of the legal lines that you can cross, I mean, this document is 108 pages long. What's the general gist of it?
Well, basically, what I was just saying, that this fantasy that Donald Trump was involved and colluded with the Russian government. I mean, it's all been debunked now. But where did that come from? It came from Hillary Clinton, who basically had taken over the DNC by contract, because they're putting their money into the DNC, but they ended up with control. They had control of all the funds. They got control over the people that were going to be running it, et cetera, et cetera. So they were in control of the DNC. DNC and the Clinton campaign were one and the same, under the same leadership. And both the DNC and Hillary Clinton both hired Michael Sussman from the Perkins Coie law firm, figuring that she would be able to hide all of this nefarious activity behind attorney-client privilege. So that's where then she had the law firm. These lawyers do. I mean, Michael Sussman, he's already indicted for, not for what he did, but for lying to the FBI. But he was instrumental with that, with his partner, Elias. These people basically then hired a company called Fusion GPS, who dealt with a fellow named Danchenko, who made up a lot of this nonsense that he was getting fed to him through a really close friend, a long-term backer named Dolan, Charles Dolan, who actually was feeding all this information about the hotel that Trump supposedly stayed at, where Trump never stayed, where Trump was having salacious sexual thing going on, which never happened. Anyway, he's the one that was feeding it all to Danchenko, and Danchenko's then giving it all to Steele. And Steele was hired with his company to make up these dossiers of all this fake information. And then they took these dossiers, they went back up to Sussman. Sussman goes to the FBI and says, look, I've got this dossier, look at what Trump is doing. And he also tells them he doesn't have a client, that he's just there on his own as a good citizen. That's where he messed up in terms of why he's charged with criminal offense, because that was a lie to the FBI. And that's what he's charged with. That's the indictment. But really what he was doing was attempting to get he got the FBI involved to get the whole investigation going. They got another person that worked for GPS. GPS hired a lady named Nellie Orr. Nellie Orr is married to Bruce Orr. Bruce Orr is in the Department of Justice. And she used to be in the Department of Justice, so she knows how it all works to get them biting on the dossier, to be able to get these FISA warrants and get an investigation of Carter Page, who worked with Donald Trump and his organization, so that then they were able to expand that and get wiretaps, not just from Carter Page, but everyone that he spoke to, and then everyone that those people spoke to. So it was a web that was cast over the whole Trump organization in terms of what eavesdropping they were doing. It was, I mean, how can a political organization, a political group, do such a thing? And of course, Michael Sussman realized that if he would have told them the truth, that these things stem from a political party, from Hillary Clinton, that the FBI and the Department of Justice wouldn't have been interested in it in the same way. They would have understood it was bunk. So, and they would have investigated it differently. So that's why what he did was so wrong. And Danchenko is also charged at this point. So we're seeing that, these things are coming out, the truth will out in time, and it's coming out in time for us to be able to get the record straight in terms of the civil suit as well. But, you're asking where are all these parts, and, how does it all move? And as I say, if you think of Hillary Clinton as the eye of the octopus, the one that conjured up this whole thing, and then each of the 8 arms of the octopus really had different kinds of functions. So then it also boils down into what was the effects of Lisa Page and Strzok, the lovebirds. You know what I'm talking about. I think if you've been following this stuff. I mean, look at these emails or texts rather that were between the two of them, where they talk about an insurance policy. So what is that insurance policy? What do they mean by an insurance policy? Well, there's George Bernard Shaw, the guy that gave us, Youth is Wasted on the Young.
Yes.
He was a playwright many years ago. Young people don't know who he is anymore, but, he was before my time too. But, the fact is that he's kind of known for certain things that he said. And one thing that he said once was, he said, the punishment of a liar is not in the least that he cannot be believed, but rather that he cannot believe others. Why? Because he's looking at the world through his own prism. He knows how he lies. He figures everybody's like he is. So you get people like this Strzok and Page and so on. They think everybody's like they are. So if they can set Donald Trump up, so he's going to be the subject of an investigation by the FBI or by special counsel or however, then they're going to find all the criminality. They're going to find all the crimes that he committed, right? Isn't that what somebody who commits crimes would think?
Right.
That everybody must do the same thing. No, there's some people that are honest on this planet, and Donald Trump is obviously one of them, because look what he went through. He went through 2 years of the Mueller investigation and a year of investigation before that, where they were, the Mueller investigation, they knew there was no no Russian collusion because there was no evidence of any. And if they looked at it at all, they saw that everything was made up from a bunch of nonsense. So they weren't looking for Russian collusion. They were looking for anything and everything. They wanted to, if they could find him spitting in the subway, they would have nailed him for that. But they couldn't find anything. All these years, all these millions and millions of dollars that got spent investigating Donald Trump, and they couldn't find a thing. How
And they
many
ju-
people can actually pass that kind of a test in terms of honesty and decency?
And they just dropped that big lawsuit against them. The New York did, right? The one that
Yeah,
they were
'cause
going
they
to, and
can't
that,
find anything. You know,
right?
they sure this one that left, he can make believe that there's something, but he doesn't have anything there either. There's nothing. Because for one thing, you know, you went to you've had your experiences in the military. Well, you know, New York Military Academy, we had something called an honor code. The cadet
Right.
shall not lie,
Lie,
cheat, or
cheat, or
steal from
steal.
another cadet. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Or tolerate
and
those
you
that
did
do.
that.
Or tolerate
What's
those
that?
that do, or tolerate those that do.
Or tolerate those that do. Donald Trump never had a problem with honesty. I lived with the man. He's an honest, decent person. He never lied about anything in all the time I've known him. And so, you know, he passed the test, and then he became a billionaire. And, you know, he didn't have to steal $1 million from somebody or lie to get it or whatever, because he made his money. He found his way of doing it. He went to the Commodore Hotel, he got that and
Yeah.
reworked it, the Plaza, it's called now. And he realized I could make hundreds of millions of dollars in one transaction.
Yeah.
Excuse me, and that's what he did.
Right. And
So
if you,
he didn't have to have a life of crime, not like the Clintons apparently may have. I don't know what their past is, but I know that they came up with this harebrained idea, which caused a tremendous amount of harm. So that's where this lawsuit is here to redress that entire episode of what occurred, with the hope that when they get punished sufficiently, it'll deter others from engaging in such actions.
you were talking about how fun it was going to rallies and chanting "lock her up, lock her up." From your standpoint and your opinion as a lawyer, and with some intricate knowledge and background of this, of, you know, unique knowledge of some of this stuff, what is your opinion as a lawyer? It's like, you know, why didn't anything follow through with the DOJ and stuff like that, you know, and in that regard, you know?
Well, the president doesn't run the DOJ. You know, that's probably the one part of his administration that he has the least to do with. You know, you may remember Janet Reno with Bill Clinton when they were investigating him, and Janet Reno said, "No, don't come near me with any of that." That was one of the most scary and difficult parts of Clinton's administration, was that he picked the wrong attorney general because she wasn't ready to play ball with him. And that's what a good attorney general will do, is keep the department independent from the politics. And I mean, I'm not saying what's going on now. Obviously, attorney generals are going to be people that have similar politics to the president's. But also, when you think about it in terms of Hillary Clinton, much of what we know now, we didn't know then. And in fact, that's part of the reason we're able to go ahead with some of the actions we're going ahead with, because there's something called a discovery rule. So the statute of limitations comes into play from the time you knew or should have known of certain activity.
Right.
And so that's why the RICO counts and so on are there for Donald Trump to bring, because much of this was unearthed very recently by Durham.
The one thing I always find is that Donald always tends to be right when he states some things, you know, he just, in the long run, it always comes out to be true.
I know. And there were times, I remember when he was running in 2016, and I'd say to myself, "Oh, Donald, why did you do that? Why did you say that?" And 2 days later, I realized he's dead right, right on.
Right.
And, you know, it's just that he has the guts to be able to say what he's thinking. And there it goes again, back to New York Military Academy, where we learn not to be afraid. And that's a hard lesson. That's not something you learn
Yeah.
because you read in a book. I mean, you got to be facing very scary situations and learn how to deal
for,
with them.
for months and years at a time.
And then somehow you're just not afraid for
Um,
the rest of our lives.
so where do you see, where's this all going to go towards? I mean, it just got filed yesterday. Like, what's going to happen next, and how long is this going to take? And
Okay. I have to tell you, my immediate boss in this whole deal, the one I work for, and she doesn't like it when I say I work for her because she sees us, and she's right, that we really work together. I work with Alina Hava. She is a smart cookie, a good lawyer. She knows what she wants and when she wants it. And I love working with her because everything that comes out of her is sensible and smart. Sometimes it's demanding, but if it's too demanding and you don't quite do exactly everything you need to do because the time period wasn't quite enough, she's very understanding. In fact, Donald was lucky to have her as his chief lawyer there, and I definitely love working with her. And this was written by her firm and mine. It went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth over 2 months.
like what's the time frame moving forward? Like, how long is this going to last? And I mean, is this going to be weeks, months, years?
Federal court moves quickly. With 24 defendants and the case being as complex as it is, I can understand that the scheduling, what you do in federal court is the lawyers get together, they make a scheduling report, and then they have a scheduling order that comes down from the judge, usually approving of the report. So we'll have so long to get the discovery done, which is depositions. We're able to ask the other side questions, interrogatories. We can ask them for documents, requests for production, requests for admission. So that's basically what happens in the discovery phase. And then after that, then there's motions for summary judgment, motions to dismiss. Well, in fact, motions to dismiss come even earlier. So if there's a defendant who says, well, as a matter of law, you didn't plead enough, let's say we didn't have a fraud count, but if we had a fraud count and we didn't say when the fraud occurred, but we put down everything about it, but we just forgot to put in when. So that's the element that needs to be included. So then the case would get dismissed with a right for us to amend and put that in. So, but let's just say that we alleged fraud and nobody ever told a lie, and we never could allege that there was a lie. We didn't, as I say, we didn't base this case on fraud, but nevertheless, there were a lot of lies in this case. But let's just say that were the case. Well, then we wouldn't even be able to fix it. So then it would be a dismissal with prejudice. So, this is what they're going to go after at first. They're going to do what they can to get dismissals. Then we're going to then they're going to file an answer. And once their answer is there, then we're going to have a scheduling report. And then after that's done, then the motions to dismiss and other determinative motions are going to be heard. And that could determine the case, depending on what we find in discovery, what we don't find. And then after that, it's trial. And thing about federal court is they don't allow cameras in, which is unfortunate because this would be a really good one to have televised.
Right.
But that's not going to happen. And we've got Judge Middlebrooks, who is actually a Clinton appointee. So now we're suing the wife of the person that appointed him. But Judge Middlebrooks is a pretty fair guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know whether my client feels safe. My experiences with Judge Middlebrooks have been kind of exemplary.
The case is based in Florida or New York?
The Southern District of Florida
Okay,
in the federal court.
okay,
And it's here because the injurious falsehoods that were committed in Florida. They were committed in all 50 states. And so that means that it's where the tort occurred or where the defendant lives. And at the same time, we have defendants that are Florida citizens of the state of Florida, such as Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who had a major part to play in this whole episode. So there's more than one reason that we should be able to bring this and keep it in the state of Florida.
this is a civil lawsuit. So what, in a civil lawsuit, what kind of relief can you expect to come out of a civil lawsuit? And then does that lead into a criminal lawsuit?
Okay.
From a general standpoint.
It's funny because I think the criminal suits, you're calling it a criminal suit, but the criminal prosecutions have led to the civil case. Just the opposite, because now we know, now we can see, now we've got the evidence as to what Michael Sussman was doing. These are the lawyers that work for Perkins Coie, who basically masterminded with Hillary Clinton and executed her plan. And so, these are the dirty lawyers,
Right.
who did the dirty deeds and had other people do the dirty deeds, depending on which deeds they were. I mean, some they did themselves, some they enlisted other help. But this is what it is. And for this, they got paid handsomely. But you see, that's the thing about lawyers. They did this, they figured that they would avoid being caught because lawyers have attorney-client privilege. They can't give the information up. They can't tell the information. They can't be asked the information even by a judge because it's attorney-client privilege. So therefore, you can have your lawyers do all kinds of things, but they can't. Attorney-client privilege doesn't apply when your lawyer is doing something that's criminal or when your lawyer is doing something that's fraudulent. You cannot then have something like this occur. So the Clintons made a big mistake when they thought that that would be the case. Also, they made a big mistake by having lawyers. They should have just gone to professional criminals who know how to keep their mouths shut. But instead, they went through to lawyers and asked those lawyers to be criminals. But lawyers do something that criminals don't normally do. These criminals in lawyers' suits, they did do what lawyers do, which is they needed to be paid for their time. So they made time slips. And they kept a record of all of the secret meetings and all of the things that they were doing. So going to a lawyer turns out not to be the smartest thing in the world because they bill for their work and those bills have all of this nefarious stuff in it. I mean, sometimes it just says, attended a meeting on secret project, what?
Right.
We all know what that is.
I find it interesting that the stuff that's going on with Russia right now and what's going on over there right now, and now we have this lawsuit coming out. Is there any, in your opinion, like do these two things have anything to do with each other, in your opinion?
No.
Or there's no connection at all?
Well, there's a connection in a sense because there's the Democrat mentality that it's okay to do whatever you want to do to hurt people or whatever, and at the same time a certain lack of integrity and a certain lack of guts. I mean, I can tell you this, I can't tell you for a fact because it's hypothetical, but if Donald Trump was still in office, we wouldn't be seeing any war with the Ukraine. We didn't see even a hint of it while Donald Trump was in office. Nobody was talking about it. Putin wasn't warning the Ukraine.
There were no wars. There was really minimal military deaths. Rocket Man didn't shoot anything. I mean, because Donald ruled with an iron fist and nobody wanted to mess with him, you know?
Nobody would mess with him. And frankly, he's told me certain things that he told Putin and things that he told to Xi. And I got to tell you, you didn't mess with the United States of America, because we have the power. And we had the power, especially then. I know Russia, China's been catching up more than Russia, but I know they're catching up, but they're still not there. And regarding what really happened on January 6th, but what I'm really looking for is January 6th.
Okay.
I'm looking for what happened. Okay, because we know that Donald Trump didn't send anybody into the Capitol. We know that. He did not participate in any kind of an insurrection. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to attempt to prove that Donald Trump was involved in an insurrection so that he would be banned from running for office in the federal government, according to the 14th Amendment. And that's where we have a lot more work to do. What we're dealing with here in this complaint has to do with the dirty deeds that were done, the Watergate that was done by Hillary Clinton, which is far worse. I mean, the burglars that went into Watergate, they didn't plant false stories. You know, they were just spying on what they were doing. With Hillary Clinton, that was just starters spying on what they were doing. So that's a whole different bag of tricks.
Is there
Dirty, disgusting.
As we close out, is there anything else you want to mention?
No, I think the future is going to unfold one way or the other. But I will tell you this. I am absolutely convinced that we have a good chance of keeping this country, keeping the democracy. I know it's gone right now, but we have a good chance of getting it back. So let's just put everything we have into 2022. Let's put everything we have into 2024, because that's when we've got to get it back, or it's going to be gone.
So.
Citizen Media.